Welcome to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam, where each week, twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, New York City time, 4 p.m., we discuss a section of the Bhagavatam and consider lessons that we can apply in our lives. Today, we continue with the 10th canto and we are discussing chapters 80 and 81. So, small update there. And this concerns the story of the Brahmana Sudama. Sudama Brahmana. Before we begin, I'll chant some invocatory prayers, glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.40. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakora Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasya Lokasya Nadyam Stvastya Namahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. That description is all perfect. Verse 41, Tat idam grahayam asha sutam atmatmatam varam sarva veditaha shanam saram saram samudritam. Srila Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Wow. This makes us eager to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 42. Satu samshravanasa maharajam parikshitam prayo pavishatam ganyam paritam param rishibi. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great Emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink. Last verse. Text 43. Krishna swadharma pagate dharma janari bisaha kalo nastadrisam esha puranarka nanoditaha. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by dharma, or religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Wonderful. Let me greet our participants today. We are joined by Achyutananda, joining us from the UK. Achyutananda says, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Ki Jai indeed. Achyutananda, I might see you soon. In May, I'll be there with Indujunda Maharaj. Possibly. We could meet, huh? My wife, Sri Gandharvika Dasi, joining us from New York City. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Sri Gandharvika says, Hari Bol. Hari Bol. My dear, joining us from work. Thank you for being with us. Janaki, joining us from Hungary, says, Hari Krishna, Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Thank you, Janaki. Great to have you here. Kirtina, joining us from Norway, sends gratitude. Shama Manjari is with us from South Africa. Shama Manjari says, Hari Krishna, Sri Prahlad Prabhuji, and all assembled devotees. We have someone joining us from Greece, it looks like, by the Cyrillic script. Hari Krishna Prabhu. Unfortunately, I can't see who it is. Maybe my wife could decipher, read that Cyrillic script, And then we have a Chitananda says, looking forward to seeing you in that case. Yeah, great. That'd be wonderful. Okay, on Instagram, we are also joined by Madhava Naidu. Hey, Madhava, thank you for being here. It's an honor to see your name and just to be reminded of you. We had a wonderful time sharing kirtan together in Rishikesh, and I see your Australian tour is going wonderfully. Mr. Ab14 is here, and then Rudenko, Artemi, then Yugala Silva, Big Bapu, and Yogi Ash, and DHR003. Thank you all for joining for this Bhagavata Katha. Nikunja's with us from Auckland, New Zealand as well. Nikunja says, Hare Krishna, Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Nikunja. Thank you for being with us today. And I know you try to come for every class when possible. You're one of our regular participants. So let me once again welcome you all to Life Lessons from Srimad Bhagavatam. Today's topic, Krishna blesses Sudama Brahmana. We are discussing chapters 80 and 81 of the 10th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam. I've attended many temple fundraisers over the years, and let me tell you, one of the stories that frequently gets told during these events is the story of Sudama Brahmana. And the implication for telling this story at such events is Sudama gave just a palmful of chip rice to Krishna and received opulences greater than Indra. What would then be the effect if you gave $1,000 or several thousand or $100,000? What might you receive in return from Krishna? We can question, though, is that the purport of this story? Is that what we're supposed to learn from this story? Maybe you have an opinion on this. You can write yes or no in the chat, and then we can discuss it later on. Yes or no, maybe a little more reasoning. Another question that I would like to get your feedback on, or maybe a little bit of a quiz. Is there a verse from the Bhagavad Gita that also appears verbatim in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Some of you may know the answer. Some of you may decide to look it up as I'm speaking. But if you discover the answer or know the answer, put it into the chat. Which verse appears both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam verbatim, exactly the same? We will come back to your responses to both of these questions. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to discuss this 10th canto, chapters 80 to 81, under three headings. 1, Sudama visits Krishna in Dvaraka, verses 1 to 45 of the 80th chapter. Then Sudama's gift, verses 1 to 11 of the 81st chapter. And then Krishna's reciprocation, verses 12 to 41 of the 81st chapter. Parikshit Maharaj had been hearing about the glories of Lord Baladev. And as Sukadev Goswami concluded that narration, describing how Baladev had laid down his weapons, that the Kurukshetra war was over, that Balaram had gone to Naimisharanya and performed sacrifice, Parikshit became concerned. Has Sukadev Goswami ended the story? Is this the end? Is this the end of these narrations? So he's very, very concerned. He says, "Oh my Lord, oh Master, oh Bhagavan Sukadev Goswami, I wish to hear more about the glorious deeds performed by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And then he says something that's most wonderful. I'm going to venture to chant the Sanskrit, although I'm not familiar with chanting this verse, but the translation is so wonderful that I'm going to try with the Sanskrit as well. Samagyasya tasya gunan grinite karo chatat karma karo manascha smared vasantam stirajagamam sa shrunoti tat punya katha sakarna. He says, actual speech is that which describes the qualities of the Lord. Real hands are those that work for him, performing deity worship or cleaning the temple. A true mind is that which always remembers him, dwelling with everything moving and non-moving. And actual ears are those that listen to sanctifying topics about him. There's one more verse like this. Shirosta tasya bhai lingamanmet tadeva yat pashyanti taddi chakshu angani vishnur atatajjananam padodakam vyani bhajanti nityam. An actual head is one that bows down to the Lord in his manifestations among the moving and non-moving creatures. Real eyes are those that see only the Lord, and actual limbs are those that regularly honor the water that has bathed the feet, or the Lord's feet, or those of his devotees. Beautiful verses, and they're describing how we engage all our senses in devotional service, the very definition of bhakti. Sukadeva Goswami understands that Parikshit is very eager to continue to hear about Krishna. And so he begins a new pastime, a new story. He said Krishna had a Brahmana friend named Sudama, who was very learned in Vedic teachings. He was detached from sense enjoyment, and his mind was always peaceful and his senses subdued. He lived and maintained himself and his wife by whatever came of its own accord, which means they were very, very poor, poverty-stricken. There are different ways that people can earn a living according to Manu. So one is called Amrita, nectar. You just accept whatever Krishna sends you. Another is called Brita, which means you beg. Brita means death, actually, because some houses you'll be received well, other houses they might insult you or reject you. So for the Brahmanas, Amrita or Brita, or otherwise there's teaching and receiving dakshina. But this Sudama Brahmana, he's living by Amrita, just accepting, like Madhavendra Puri, whatever Krishna will send without asking. That's his way. Which means, but it's difficult to maintain a family in that way. So one day, Sudama's wife, she had nothing to offer her husband, no food to prepare for her husband, which means she can't serve her husband. And so she says, Prabhu, your friend is Krishna himself. You went to school together. Please visit him in Dvaraka and ask him for some charity. Another very beautiful verse. So I would like to try to chant the Sanskrit for you. Aste duna dvaratayam boja vrishni andakeshava smarata parakamalam atmanam atpi yachati kimnavarta kamam bhajato nati abhishtan jagat guru. Lord Krishna is now the ruler of the Bojas and Vrishnis and Andakas, and he's staying in Dvaraka. Since he gives his own self to anyone who simply remembers his lotus feet. What doubt is there that he, the spiritual master of the universe, will bestow upon his sincere worshipper prosperity and material enjoyment which are not even very desirable? So you can see that his wife was also very detached, very renounced, that material prosperity, enjoyment, not even very desirable. But if Krishna will give his own self to someone who just remembers him, then if somebody asks him sincerely and worships him, why wouldn't he give them some material opulence? Sudama is very reluctant to ask anything of Krishna. Remember, he doesn't ask anything of anyone. What to speak of asking something of Krishna? But he thought to himself, well, if I go, I will be able to see Krishna again. I will have Krishna's darshan. And so he said, all right, I'll go. I will visit my friend Krishna in Dvaraka. But he didn't want to go empty-handed. When we visit someone, we should take some gift. And so his wife went and begged some gift from the neighbors, and she received 3 palmfuls of flat rice. Flat rice, for those of you who know it, it's not very necessarily tasty. It can be made tasty, but in and of itself, it's not considered very expensive, high-class food. I like flat rice, but yeah, just a palmful of flat rice, it's not a very, we might say, not a very good gift. And so, but yeah, that's what they had. So Sudama, he took that flat rice and he tied it in the edge of his chadar, and he set off on his journey. And as he traveled, he wondered how he will be able to have Krishna's audience now that he's a great king. He arrived in Dvaraka and he joined some other Brahmanas. And with that group, he passed through some different guard stations and gateways. And he got closer and closer to the heart of the city. He walked past the homes of Krishna's very dear devotees, the Andakas and the Vrishnis. And as he continued along unobstructed, he entered the area where Krishna's 16,000 queens resided in their own opulent palaces. And so he approached the palace of Krishna's principal queen, Rukmini Devi. And Krishna saw him approaching from a distance, and he immediately got up from where he had been seated on Rukmini Devi's own bed, and he embraced Sudama and welcomed him with great joy. He sat Sudama down on Rukmini's bed. It's very, very intimate. Generally, you wouldn't invite a guest into your wife's bedroom. But that's where he was, and Sudama was such a close friend that he seats his friend Sudama on Rukmini's bed. He anointed Sudama with his own hand with sandalwood paste and aguru, offered him gifts, waved lamps and incense. He bathed Krishna's feet with his own hands and sprinkled the water on his head. Meanwhile, Rukmini Devi, she fanned this shabbily dressed Brahmana with a chamara, a yak-tail whisk. And all the attendants, all the servants and residents of the palace, they were astonished. Who is this poor Brahmana that is receiving such honor from Krishna and Rukmini? What pious acts must this impoverished Brahmana have performed in a previous life? People regard him as insignificant, but here we have the Lord of the 3 worlds, the abode of the goddess Lakshmi, serving him with great honor and reverence. Krishna held Sudama by the hand, and the two of them reminisced about things they had done long ago together in their childhood, residing in the ashram of their spiritual master, Sandipani Muni. Krishna asked Sudama, he said, "Do you remember, dear friend, those days when we were living in our guru's school?" And then he says something very wonderful. And again, I want to recite the verse. It's 10:80:32. Sabai Satkarmanam Savai Satkarmanam Shakshad Dvijater Iha Sambhava Adyango Yatra Shraminam Yataham Jnanado Guru. Nice verse. Oh friend, he who gives a person his physical birth is his first spiritual master, first guru. And he who initiates him as a twice-born Brahmana and engages him in religious duties is indeed more directly his spiritual master. But the person who bestows transcendental knowledge upon the members of all the spiritual orders of society is one's ultimate spiritual master. Indeed, he is as good as my own self. So for the parents are guru, the person who initiates one with Gayatri Mantra is guru, but the most important guru, Krishna is saying, is one who gives transcendental knowledge and awakens spiritual realization within the heart. Krishna asked Sudama, "Do you remember what happened while we were living in our guru's ashram and how he once sent us to fetch firewood and we got caught in a big storm with fierce wind and rain and harsh thunder, and the sun set and the forest was covered in darkness in all directions, and we couldn't see anything. There was water flooding. We couldn't distinguish high ground from low ground in the darkness, and we lost our way in the flooding waters, and we just held each other's hand in great distress, wandering aimlessly in the forest. And our guru, Sandipani Muni, was very concerned about us. At sunrise, he came out with a search party along with his disciples, and they found us in distress. And Sandipani Muni, he was very pleased with us. He said, "Oh, my children, you have suffered so much for my sake. The body is most dear to the living creature, but you are so dedicated to me that you completely disregarded your own comfort. This indeed is the duty of all true disciples, to repay the debt to their spiritual master by offering him with pure hearts their wealth and even their very lives." He said, "You boys are first-class Brahmanas, and I'm very satisfied with you. May all your desires be fulfilled, and may the Vedic mantras you have learned never lose their meaning for you in this world or the next." So you see how Krishna and Sudama receive the blessings of their guru because of their sacrifice. Sudama replied, "Krishna, what possibly could I have failed to have achieved when you, the Lord of Lords, the universal teacher, were with me? I was living personally with you in the home of our spiritual master. Whatever I was able to achieve, those blessings that we received from our guru, I got them because of your mercy, because of my being associated with you." He said, "Your body comprises the absolute truth in the form of the Vedas, and thus you are the source of all auspicious goals in life. Your taking up residence in a gurukul of a spiritual master is just one of your pastimes in which you play the role of a human being." So we can pause here and reflect briefly. We can reflect on a couple of things that I would like to bring our attention to. One is this description of the process of bhakti that is given to us so wonderfully by Parikshit Maharaj, the king. Parikshit's eagerness to continue hearing about Krishna provides us some insight on how to live a life of bhakti, engaging all our senses in Krishna's service. Krishna is called Hrishikesha, the master of the senses. And we engage in bhakti, according to Narad Muni, by engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses. Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. And here Parikshit tells us, true speech is that which glorifies Krishna. True action is that which engages in service, in divine purpose. Using our voices to sing Krishna's glory, our hands to perform work that pleases him, our minds to meditate on him, our ears to hear of him, sanctifies our very existence, purifies our hearts. And so the mundane becomes sacred when we engage our senses in the service of the master of the senses. Another important lesson for us from this description is about service to the spiritual master. Krishna and Sudama are reminiscing about living together in the ashram of their guru. And we can get some insight on the exalted position of the spiritual master, who imparts transcendental knowledge to us, acting thereby as the representative of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and service to such a spiritual master, as shown in the example of Krishna and Sudama, Brahmana, is how we practice discipleship, offering our wealth, offering service, offering our life to the Guru with a pure heart fulfills the duty of the disciple, because transcendental knowledge is priceless. And even that debt can never be repaid by the Guru, but the disciple at least shows their gratitude by attempting to show their appreciation. And this service not only pleases not only pleases the Guru, but also pleases Krishna, who is the universal teacher, the ultimate Guru. And so gratitude, humility, dedication, shown here by Krishna and Sudama in their service to their spiritual master, as an example for us, teaching us that serving our spiritual master with sincerity leads to the ultimate fulfillment of life's purpose. Well, let's continue on. Sudama's gift. We know what the gift is. Let's see how it is offered and received. So Krishna, in the course of his loving conversations with Sudama, asks him, "My dear friend Sudama, have you brought any gift for me from your home?" He said, "I regard as very significant even the smallest gift offered by my loving devotee." So earlier, I asked you a question. I said, is there a verse that is repeated both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam? And I said, if you know it, type it into the chat. So that was my quiz for you, also to generate some engagement here. And yeah, okay, so we have two answers to the question. Sri Gandharvika, my wife, has answered the question by saying, Patram Pushpam Phalam Tvayam. A very famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 9:26, and the very same verse appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:81-4. Patram Pushpam Phalam Tvayam Yo me Bhaktya Prayachati Taraham Bhaktuparitam Ashnami Prayatatmana. Now, what is the translation for that verse? It is given here on Instagram by Big Bapu, who also answered the question by writing leaf, water, fruit, or water Krishna will delightfully partakes if offered with love. Well done, Big Bapu. I am grateful for your engagement in offering a response to this question. So, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. It's quite wonderful. The same verse appears both in the Gita and in the Bhagavatam. You might wonder which came first. And the answer, I can tell you, is the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is written first, then the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you remember from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva has some depression, and Narad Muni appears and he tells Narad Muni, I compiled the Veda, I've written Mahabharata, but my heart is still not satisfied and I'm feeling sadness. And Narada Muni says, although you've compiled the Veda, written Mahabharata, you have not exclusively explained bhakti. And so you need to write another book, another work that explicitly explains bhakti and devotion to Krishna. And so he writes Srimad Bhagavatam. So one of the sections of the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita comes first, then the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this verse appears twice, in both of these. Sorry, appears once in each of these works. There are some other verses in the Bhagavatam that appear twice, but that's for another discussion on another day. Unless some of you want to research that and type that into the chat. But yeah, that's for another time. So Krishna, he told that to Sudama. Now when you hear that verse or recite that verse, you can remember it in relation to Sudama Brahmana. Krishna spoke this verse both to Arjuna. He spoke this verse also to Sudama Brahmana. He's saying to Sudama, don't worry if your gift isn't expensive or valuable. If one offers me a leaf or a flower or a fruit or just some water, if it's offered with love, I accept it. He's reassuring Sudama. Even after this assurance, however, the poor Brahmana Sudama was too ashamed to present his meager gift of flat rice. And Krishna, he's Paramatma, super soul in the hearts of all living beings. Jitatmana prasantasya Paramatma samahita. Sarvasya chaham vedi sanivishto matasmriter jnana. He tells us in different places how he's in the hearts of all living beings, and he knows what people think. He knows what people desire. He knows what Sudama is hiding. He knows why Sudama has come to visit him. And so he knows that Sudama has been sent by his wife along with his gift. And so he grabs the bundle, the small, let's say, the small bundle of chip rice that Sudama was hiding, and he untied that bundle, and he said, my friend, you have brought this for me? It gives me so much pleasure. And he takes some of that chip rice and throws it into his mouth, and he says, indeed, these few grains of chip rice will satisfy not only me, but the entire universe. Because when Krishna is satisfied, he's the root. Everything else is the tree. So when Krishna is satisfied, then everyone is satisfied. And so he was delighting in this chip rice, and he was about to have more. Second morsel. Remember, it was 3 palmfuls. He's about to take a second palmful, and Rukmini Devi, who's fanning with her chamra, she stops him, holding his hand. Remember, she's the goddess of fortune. Lakshmi is her reflection. And Rukmini says, this is more than enough, O soul of the universe, to secure for him an abundance of all kinds of wealth in this world and the next. After all, One's prosperity depends simply on your satisfaction. This is enough. I am already obliged to him for his having offered you one palmful of chip rice. There's no need for you to eat any more of this. Remember, it's dried. It's dry. It hasn't been soaked or prepared with any kind of seasoning or spicy. Krishna's just eating dry chip rice. And so Rukmini's not too happy seeing him eating it. So she stops him and says, it's not necessary. I am already obliged to this Brahmana as the goddess of fortune. Sudama was overwhelmed with this experience of living with Krishna and Rukmini in the palace. He stayed there overnight as their guest. And the next morning, he prepared to leave for home. So we can pause here and reflect and just appreciate Krishna's delight in this humble gift, some flat rice. And it reveals to us, and he tells us, that when offerings are made with love and devotion, they transcend their material value. It teaches us to value the intention behind our actions and offerings more than their outward appearance. Even the simplest act of giving, when performed with devotion, can yield infinite spiritual blessings, as indicated here in Krishna's accepting Sudama's offering. It shows us the depth of Krishna's love for his devotees. The smallest act Krishna appreciates: leaf, flower, fruit, water. The main thing is that we do it with love. And Krishna, he gives himself to the devotee that makes such an offering of the heart. We can remember this in our chanting. We can chant consciously, attentively with love, or we can chant inattentively, and we get our quantity of rounds in, but inattentively. Krishna is concerned with our hearts. Let us try to chant with heart. Let us try to serve with heart in all that we do. Let's go to our third topic, Krishna's reciprocation, verses 12 to 41. Sudama is journeying home, and although he has apparently received no wealth from Krishna because he was too shy to ask, as he returned home, he felt fully satisfied. He had had Krishna's darshan. He thought, Krishna is known to be devoted to the Brahmanas, and now I personally experienced his devotion. He who carries the goddess of fortune on his chest has embraced me, the poorest of beggars, and held me close to his chest. This is a very nice verse. I know I'm reading lots of verses to you today, but I'm excited by them, enlivened by them, and want to share them. This is 1081:16. Kvaham daritra papiyan Kva Krishna Shri Niketana Brahma Bandur iti smaham Bahubhyayam Parimbrita. Who am I? A sinful, poor friend of a Brahmana. And who is Krishna? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of 6 opulences. Nevertheless, he embraced me with his 2 arms. This verse appears twice in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are moments where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraces a devotee, and the devotee responds by reciting this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. One of those devotees, I believe, was Murari Gupta. Another was the leper, Vasudev. So if you remember, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he cured the leper Vasudev, embracing him. Once he received Lord Chaitanya's embrace, then his leprosy was cured, and he recited this verse. Who am I? A sinful, poor friend of a Brahmana. And who is Krishna? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in 6 opulences. Nevertheless, he has embraced me with his 2 arms. The Brahmana Sudama further considered, devotional service to Krishna's lotus feet is the root of all perfections a person can find in heaven or in liberation, in the subterranean regions or on earth, basically anywhere in the universe. Thinking, if this poor wretch suddenly becomes rich, he will forget me in intoxicating happiness. The compassionate Lord did not grant me even a little wealth. And so he's reflecting in this way as he returns home. And as he's absorbed in these reflections, he arrives at the place where his home had been and was struck with wonder. Because instead of the broken down hut that he and his wife had lived in, he saw a series of opulent palaces rivaling the combined brilliance of the sun, fire, and the moon. There were courtyards and gardens, and the gardens were filled with beautiful flowers and ponds, and there were cooing birds and blooming lotus flowers. There were finely attired men and women standing in attendance, and as they saw him approaching, they came forward singing songs and playing musical instruments. And then the Brahmana's wife, dressed in celestial garments and jewelry, came out of the palace and welcomed him with great love and reverence. And together they entered the palace. And Sudama, he saw inside the palace were beds as soft and as white as the foam of milk, and bedsteads made of ivory and ornamented with gold. There were couches with golden legs and royal chamara fans, golden thrones, soft cushions, gleaming canopies with strands of pearls hung on them. There were walls of sparkling crystal, and they were inlaid with precious emeralds. There were jeweled lamps that shone, and women about the palace adorned with precious gems. The Brahmana, seeing all of this opulence, thought to himself, I have always been poor. Certainly the only possible way that such an unfortunate person as me could become suddenly so wealthy is that Krishna, the supremely opulent chief of the Yadus, has glanced upon me mercifully. After all, my friend Krishna, the enjoyer of unlimited wealth, noticed that I secretly intended to beg from him. Thus, even though I said nothing, and he said nothing about it when I stood before him, he has bestowed upon me the most abundant riches. And in this way, he has acted like a merciful rain cloud. He further reflected, Krishna considers even his greatest benedictions to be insignificant, while he magnifies even the smallest service rendered towards him by his well-wishing devotee. Thus, with pleasure, Krishna accepted my small palmful of flat rice that I had brought for him. Krishna is the supremely compassionate reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Life after life, this is his prayer, may I serve him with love, friendship, and sympathy, and may I cultivate such firm attachment for him by the precious association of his devotees. To a devotee who lacks spiritual insight, Krishna will not grant the wonderful material opulences of the world, kingly power, and material assets. Indeed, in his infinite wisdom, Krishna well knows how the intoxication of pride can cause the downfall of the wealthy. But if he decides, then he can offer opulences even greater than that of Indra. And so Sudama, he lived a life amidst great wealth and opulence while maintaining a mood of detachment, constantly chanting Krishna's glories. And in a short time, he broke off all bonds of bodily attachment and attained the kingdom of God. There's a blessing for us, for you and I who are present to this discussion on Sudama Brahmana. Sukadeva Goswami says, anyone who hears this account of Krishna's kindness to Brahmanas will come to develop love for Krishna and thus become free from the bondage of the material world. There we are. We are all blessed. We can reflect on Krishna's dealings of love. The story indicates to us the nuanced ways in which Krishna's love manifests for the ultimate benefit of his devotee. Krishna's responded to Sudama's situation, reflecting and understanding of what is truly beneficial for our progress. If wealth becomes an obstacle to the devotee's humility and focus on spiritual life, then Krishna may choose to withhold opulence to preserve the devotee's humility. Conversely, if the devotee can remain humble and devoted amidst opulence, then Krishna may shower upon them riches greater than those of Lord Indra. And so, as Krishna's devotees, if we tell Krishna, I am your devotee, I want to engage in your service, I want to fulfill your will, then in this relationship, Krishna will do what is best for us. Out of love, he will carefully consider the implications of his gifts upon us in terms of our spiritual well-being. Whether through abundance or austerity, his actions are directed towards bringing us closer to him. And so, as devotees, we have to trust Krishna's wisdom and understand whatever our circumstances, they are arranged by Krishna out of his divine compassion to foster our ultimate reunion with him, our loving relationship with him. And so whether he grants or withholds material blessings, it is done out of love for us. Let us conclude by chanting a prayer, summarizing the lessons learned. In the meantime, if you have any questions or reflections, put them in the chat. Beloved Krishna, please guide us to serve our gurus with the same devotion that Sudama and you exemplified, knowing well that this path of service to the spiritual master is the golden bridge to your heart. As you found delight in Sudama's humble offering of chip rice, may you also find our simple offerings. May you also find in our simple offerings the fragrance of our earnest love. And as you, in your boundless wisdom, choose to bestow upon us or withhold from us the opulences of this world, help us to understand that each act is a gesture of your compassion, guiding us on the path to eternal communion with you. So let me acknowledge some of you who joined after I started speaking. And in the meantime, once again, any questions or reflections, put them in the chat. This is Sri Gandharvika's translation of a name that I wasn't able to read earlier. So, Ossipidis Yorgos. Welcome, Ossipidis Yorgos. Thank you for being with us today. I'm guessing from Cyprus with with that name and that relationship. So thank you so much for being here. Janavamata, wonderful to see you. Janavamata says, Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. So happy to be back with you all. We are so happy to have you back with us. Janavamata, we were missing you. So Wayne here from Melbourne says, Hare Krishna, humble obeisances, Prabhu. Welcome, Wayne. Thank you for joining. Ganga Seva says, Hare Krishna, Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Thank you very much for your wonderful class and beautiful prayers. How can we glorify the Lord and his devotees with our condition? Good question. And so, how do we glorify Krishna considering our condition? And we have some different ways. We have some different options available to us. One is that if we're feeling unqualified to glorify Krishna with our own words, then we repeat the prayers of the acharyas. We repeat the prayers of the saints that have gone before us, as found in Srimad Bhagavatam. There are the prayers of Queen Kunti. There are the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. There are the prayers of Gajendra. There are the songs of the gopis. So we can learn these prayers and recite these prayers. There's great blessings in this recitation of the prayers found in Srimad Bhagavatam. Another way that we can pray and glorify the Lord is given to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that is Nam Sankirtan. Just by chanting Krishna's names, glorifying the names, then that is a most wonderful prayer. When we say Krishna, we are saying, Krishna, you are the all-attractive. Your wisdom is without end. Your strength is infinite. Your renunciation is unparalleled. Your opulence, your wealth is limitless. So when we say these names of Krishna, we glorify him. When we sing Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, then we glorify Krishna. We also purify our own hearts, and we purify the atmosphere that around us. So those are two ways that we can pray. Another way is that we can pray is in our own words. We can express the feelings of our hearts. Even if we feel inadequate, Prahlad Maharaj felt inadequate. When Brahma sent him to pray to pacify Narasimhadev, Prahlad said, who am I? I'm a 5-year-old boy, and I'm the son of a demon. How can I glorify Narasimhadev? But then he said, Krishna appreciates the effort. The effort itself is purified. So when we make the effort, Krishna reciprocates, and we find words, we find realizations that we otherwise didn't know we had, because Krishna is giving them to us. Dhruva, he was unable to speak when he saw Krishna. He became stupefied. But then Krishna, seeing he had the intention, he wants to glorify me, he touched his conch shell to Dhruva's head, and then Dhruva offered many wonderful prayers. So when we make the effort to glorify Krishna, he reciprocates with that. And what do we say? We can repeat what we've learned from Shastra. So in another earlier class, we actually analyzed some prayers from the Bhagavatam, and we found some different elements. Generally, the prayers found in the Bhagavatam, they glorify Krishna as the creator, the source of everything. They describe how everything in this world depends on him, and he's present throughout his creation. They also describe how in his love, he descends into the world to benefit, to preserve Dharma, and to protect devotees by uprooting adharma or punishing demons. And this is a manifestation or an expression of his love. And then the prayers generally conclude with the devotee making some kind of request. So first glorifying Krishna as the source, the creator, then as being present throughout his creation, as the Virat Rup. That the sun, your eye is your eyes, the moon is your mind, you're present in the taste of water, you are present in the sound of ether. And then they glorify how Krishna is not only the source of creation, present everywhere throughout creation, but he also enters his creation out of kindness. He appears as Matsya, Korma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, and so on. And in that way, the prayers invoke all of these different leelas. And then finally, after describing the Bhagavan feature, then the devotee makes a request. Please help me. You have appeared so many times in so many avatars to help your devotees. Please help me now. And this is my desire. This is my request. So yeah, wonderful question. There are many ways that we can glorify Krishna. So repeating the prayers of the Bhagavatam, doing Nam Kirtan, and then finding our own words and receiving Krishna's help in doing so. And then also taking guidance from the frameworks that are found in the prayers of the Bhagavatam to find our own words of glorification as well. Thank you, Ganga Seva. Madhuvani is with us from New South Wales, maybe New Govardhan. Thank you for joining, Madhuvani. Great to have you with us. Madhuvani says, Hari Bol. Monica Sharma is with us from Sydney. Monica Sharma says, Hari Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for being with us, Monica. Achutananda says, 11:27:15. There's a nice verse. Achutananda is sharing with us. One should worship me in my deity forms by offering the most excellent paraphernalia. But a devotee completely freed from material desire may worship me with whatever he has available and whatever he is able to obtain, and may even worship me within his heart with mental paraphernalia. How nice, huh? Achutananda, thank you for pointing this out. So deity worship generally is considered to have a very high standard that is expected in deity worship. But then Krishna is saying, this is Krishna's teachings to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. But then Krishna says, but yeah, if you don't have great paraphernalia to perform excellent worship, then you can just offer what you have. That's that patra pushpam phalam tvayam idea. So one thing we can take from this is, if you have nice things, don't hold them back. Don't say, yeah, Krishna is happy with a leaf or a flower or some water. No, you offer the best of what you have. And if all you have is a leaf or a flower or a water, then you offer that. The main thing is love. And then finally, even if you don't have a leaf or a flower or water, you might be surprised. Could there be a situation like that where you have to do service in your mind because you can't even get a leaf or a flower or some water? And yes, sometimes devotees find themselves in those circumstances as well. Once Indrajuna Maharaj and his Sankirtan party were locked up in jail in Spain when Spain was under the dictatorship of Franco. I think Colonel Franco was the dictator of Spain, and Indrajuna Maharaj and his associates were distributing books, and they got imprisoned. And so they performed mental service. They did the whole morning program. They dressed the deities, served the deities. They did it all in their minds. So that's a situation where they didn't have a leaf or a flower or fruit or water. So they did all the service in their minds. But Manasa Seva, it is also a way that Krishna accepts service. Manasa Seva is very exalted service. And there's a nice story in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, describing how a devotee, a Brahmana, heard that you can serve Krishna in the mind. And so he decided to try this. And he he sat by the bank of the Kaveri River and he started to meditate on performing service to Krishna. And he dressed the deity with very nice ornaments and flowers and did very opulent worship. And then he cooked for the deity. He made nice sweets, including sweet rice, kheer. And he kept it aside to cool down because Prabhupada says sweet rice is best served cold. And after a period, he thought, I wonder if the sweet rice is cool enough that I can now offer it. And so in his mind, he put his finger into the sweet rice and it burned. Famous story. Meanwhile, Narayan in Vaikuntha started laughing, and Lakshmi asked, why are you laughing, my lord? And Narayan said, come, let me show you. And he brought her down to the earthly planet on his Vaikuntha Viman and invited where that Brahmana was still looking at his burnt finger, puzzled. How did my finger burn I was just worshipping in my mind. And Lord Narayan invited this Brahmana on the Vaikuntha Viman and took him back to Vaikuntha. So yeah, so many ways that we can serve. Ganga Seva says, one beautiful pastimes of the Lord, Krishna and Sudama, one of the most beautiful pastimes. It's amazing how Krishna is simply very happy with that little service Sudama did for him. Yeah, that's right. That's a nice take home from this pastime. Ganga Seva says, Prabhupada in his class was explaining that even though Sanatana Goswami was a high-quality Brahmana, a Vaishnava, and people were saying that about him, but in front of Sri Chaitanya, he was very humble, as was asking, who am I? Yeah, nice. K. Ami, who am I? Sanatana Goswami. He was most exalted, most learned, spoke Urdu and Sanskrit and Bengali, was very well learned, but before Lord Chaitanya, he took a very humble role. Thank you, Ganga Seva. Kirtida says, beautiful. Thank you, Kirtida. And then we have Yogi Ash here who says, deep gratitude, Prabhuji. We'll surely see you soon at Bhakti Center. Love, benedictions, everyone. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Yogi Ash. Wonderful that you could join us. And gratitude to all of you. Al Ichal, Indra Gopi Devidasi, Ankita Atitoguna, Mataji, my teacher from school in Mayapur when I was 10. Thank you for joining, Mataji. Vedic chart, that's Maturnath. Bhagavatam, Mani Manjari, the butterfly instinct, Radha Krishna Leela. You've been joining regularly. Thank you. Big Bapu had a question earlier, so thank you for that. And that Trishu girl, Ganganath, thank you also very much for joining. There we are. Russ Astali is with us as well. It says, my humble pranams. Thank you. May you all deepen your taste for hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. May you all deepen your taste for chanting Krishna's holy name with attention and love. May you deepen your appreciation for Krishna's presence in his form as Sri Vigraha, as the deity. May you deepen your appreciation of the Dham, the places where Krishna resides, where Krishna is served with love. May you deepen your love and affection and service towards Krishna's devotees and seek every opportunity to be in their association. And with these practices of bhakti, may your heart soften, that with compassion and love, you are moved to share the treasures of bhakti with others. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi,